The alarm screaming through the Wanderer made Captain Jake Morrison's head pound. Red lights flashed across every surface of the bridge and the smell of burning circuits filled the air. Something had gone terribly wrong with their jump drive, and now they were floating in unknown space with half their systems offline. "Amy, give me a damage report," Jake said, gripping the armrests of his captain's chair. His knuckles were white, but his voice stayed calm. A good captain never let his crew see him panic. Lieutenant Amy Brooks worked frantically at her console, her fingers flying across the touchscreen. "Sir, we've got major damage to the jump drive. Hull breach on Deck 3, but the emergency seals are holding. Life support is stable, but weapons and shields are at 30%. She looked up at him, worry clear in her dark eyes. "Captain, we're in bad shape," Jake nodded slowly. They had been on a simple survey mission, mapping unexplored systems near the edge of human space. Earth had sent them out 6 months ago with a crew of 42 people and enough supplies for a 2-year mission. Everything had been going perfectly until their jump drive malfunctioned mid-transit. Instead of arriving at their planned destination, they had emerged here wherever here was. "Ryan, where are we?" Jake asked, turning to the science station. Dr. Ryan Chen was already working on the answer, his screens filled with star charts and data streams. He shook his head, confusion written across his face. "I have no idea, sir. The star patterns don't match anything in our database. We're not just off course. We're way off course. I'd estimate we're at least 200 light years from where we should be." A heavy silence fell over the bridge. 200 light years was an impossible distance. Even if they could repair the jump drive, they didn't have enough fuel for a jump that far. They were stranded. Commander Katie Walsh, the first officer, stepped up beside Jake's chair. She was a steady presence, someone Jake had relied on for the 3 years they had served together. "We need to send out a distress signal," she said quietly. "Maybe there's a human ship in range." Jake doubted it, but he nodded. "Do it. Broadcast on all frequencies." For the next 2 hours, the crew worked to stabilize the ship. They sealed the hull breach, rerouted power from non-essential systems, and tried to make sense of where they were. The distress signal broadcast continuously, a simple message saying they were damaged and in need of assistance. "Captain," Amy suddenly called out, "I'm picking up ships on sensors. Multiple contacts approaching fast." Jake sat up straight. "How many?" "6. No, 8 contacts. They're big, sir. Much bigger than us." Amy's hands moved quickly across her console. "They're in formation. This is a military fleet." Jake's heart raced. Humanity had never encountered alien life before. There were theories, hopes, and dreams, but no proof. Until now. "Are they responding to our distress signal?" "Looks like it." "They're heading right for us." Amy paused. "Sir, they're powering up weapons. Red alert. Bring shields to full power." Jake stood up, straightening his uniform. This was it. First contact with an alien species, and it was happening with his ship damaged and helpless. "Open a channel." "All frequencies." Katie shook her head. "Sir, we don't know their language. They'll figure it out." "Open the channel." A burst of static filled the bridge as Amy opened communications. Jake took a deep breath. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel Wanderer. We are peaceful explorers who suffered a navigation accident. We mean no harm. We are requesting assistance." For a long moment there was only silence. Then a voice responded, harsh and guttural, speaking in a language that sounded like gravel grinding together. The translation software immediately began working, but it would take time to build a proper understanding. "They're responding," Ryan said, watching his screen. "The computer is analyzing their language structure. Give it a minute." The alien ships moved closer, surrounding the Wanderer in a loose sphere formation. Jake could see them now on the main view screen. They were massive warships, dark metal covered in strange symbols and glowing with purple energy. Each one was at least 3 times the size of his ship. "They're scanning us," Amy reported. "Full spectrum scan. They're learning everything about our ship." Jake didn't like being this vulnerable, but he had no choice. They couldn't fight and they couldn't run. All they could do was hope these aliens were reasonable. The translation software suddenly chirped, and the alien voice came through clearer. "Unidentified vessel. You have entered Kryn Empire space without authorization. Identify yourself immediately or be destroyed." Jake glanced at Katie, who nodded encouragingly. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Wanderer representing Earth. As I said, we had a navigation malfunction. We did not intentionally enter your space. We request permission to repair our ship and leave peacefully. Another pause. Jake could imagine the aliens discussing what to do with them. Were they hostile? Friendly? Curious? Transmit your identification codes, the alien voice demanded. We must verify your claim. Ryan looked up from his station. Captain, should we send them our ship's registration data? Jake considered it. Their ship data would tell the aliens a lot about humanity, about their technology and capabilities, but refusing might make things worse. Send it. Full identification package including Earth's location and our mission profile. Amy worked her console preparing the data package. Transmitting now, sir. The Wanderer's identification beacon activated, broadcasting detailed information about the ship, its crew, and its origin. The data included images of Earth, humanity's brief history of space exploration, and the symbol they carried on their hull, a blue and green planet encircled by olive branches, the symbol of Earth's United Space Agency. Jake watched the view screen, studying the alien ships. They weren't moving, weren't responding, just sitting there, weapons still powered up but not firing. That's strange, Amy said, her voice uncertain. Captain, their weapon systems just went to standby mode. Maybe that's a good sign? Ryan offered hopefully. But then something else happened. The alien ships began backing away, slowly at first, then faster. It wasn't a retreat exactly, but they were definitely increasing the distance between themselves and the Wanderer. What are they doing? Katie asked, confused. Jake had no answer. The alien fleet continued to withdraw, moving to a position several thousand kilometers away. They maintained their formation but seemed to be afraid. Sir, I'm picking up a lot of communication traffic between their ships, Amy said. The computer is still working on the translation, but there's definitely something happening over there. They sound agitated. The translation software worked on the alien chatter, piecing together words and phrases. Fragments came through, disjointed and confusing. Cannot be. The symbol matches. Inform the homeworld immediately. If they are truly the... Jake leaned forward. What are they talking about? Ryan, do we have anything in our database about this Kryn Empire? Ryan shook his head. Nothing, sir. We've never been this far from Earth before, but... He hesitated, looking at his screen with a puzzled expression. Sir, according to their initial scan of us, they have information about Earth in their database. What? Jake stood up and walked over to the science station. That's impossible. We've never met them before, I know, sir. But look at this. Ryan pointed to the data streaming across his screen. When they scanned our beacon, their computer system accessed something. Some kind of old archive. The data signature suggests it's ancient, thousands of years old. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Are you saying they have records of Earth from thousands of years ago? It's the only explanation that makes sense, sir. Katie joined them, reading over their shoulders. How is that possible? Human civilization has only had spaceflight for about 200 years. Our oldest records go back maybe 1,500 years. And even those are fragmentary after the Great Collapse. The Great Collapse was what historians called the mysterious period in Earth's past, where all records seemed to stop. For reasons no one understood, there was a gap of several centuries where humanity seemed to have lost all knowledge of what came before. When civilization rebuilt, it was almost like starting from scratch. Captain, Amy interrupted, her voice tight with tension. The lead alien ship is hailing us again. Jake returned to his chair. Put them through, the alien voice returned, but this time it sounded different. Not aggressive or demanding, but careful, almost respectful. Earth vessel. We must verify something. Your ship, the symbol it carries, the planet with the olive branches. This is truly your world's symbol? Jake frowned at the strange question. Yes, that's the symbol of Earth. Why? A long silence followed. Jake could hear his crew breathing, could hear the soft hum of the ship's systems. Everyone was waiting. Finally, the alien spoke again. Earth vessel, remain in your current position. Do not attempt to approach any Kryn worlds. Do not attempt to jump away. We are contacting our homeworld for instructions. Wait, Jake said quickly. Can you tell us what's going on? Why did you withdraw? What's wrong? But the alien didn't answer. The channel went dead, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Katie spoke first. Sir, what just happened? Jake shook his head slowly, staring at the alien ships holding position in. Admiral Vexthor stood on the command deck of the Imperial Dreadnought. staring at the small, damaged ship on the view screen. His 4 eyes were wide and his scales had turned pale blue, a color his species only displayed when experiencing fear. Around him, his crew worked in complete silence, something that never happened on a Kryn warship. "Show me the symbol again," he commanded, his voice barely above a whisper. Subcommander Ralph moved quickly to comply, bringing up the image on the main display. There it was, painted on the side of the alien vessel, a blue and green planet, beautiful and serene, encircled by olive branches. Below it, writing in an alien language and a single word that the computer had translated: Earth. Vexthor felt his legs grow weak. He had studied military history his entire life. He had commanded fleets in 3 wars and had earned his position through decades of service, but nothing in all his years had prepared him for this moment. "It cannot be," he muttered. "They were destroyed. All the records say they were destroyed." Ralph stepped closer to the Admiral, keeping his voice low so the rest of the crew wouldn't hear. "Sir, permission to access the Forbidden Archives?" The Forbidden Archives. Information so old and so dangerous that it was sealed away, accessible only with the highest levels of Imperial authority. Vexthor had that authority, but he had never used it. Few admirals ever did in their entire careers. "Access granted," Vexthor said. Search for Earth." Ralph's claws clicked across his console as he entered the security codes. The screen flickered and then data began flowing across it. Ancient data, stored in formats that were barely readable by modern systems. Data that was 3,000 years old. The crew fell even more silent as the information appeared on the main view screen. Images flickered past, grainy and damaged by age, ships, planets, and species. So many species that no longer existed. Then one image froze on the screen. It showed a planet, blue and green, covered in white clouds. Beside it, text in the old Imperial language described what they were seeing. Ralph read it aloud, his voice shaking. "Earth, homeworld of humanity. Classification: Death World. Threat level maximum. Status: extinct." "Keep reading," Vexthor ordered. Humanity fought in the War of the Old Ones as part of the Galactic Coalition. When the Old Ones invaded from beyond the known galaxy, 17 species joined together to fight them. Within 2 years, 12 of those species surrendered or were destroyed. Within 5 years, only 3 remained: the Kryn, the Velthari, and humanity. Ralph paused, his voice catching. Every Kryn child learned about the War of the Old Ones in school. It was the darkest time in their history. The Kryn Empire had been young then, barely 100 worlds, and they had nearly been wiped out. "Continue," Vexthor said. In the 6th year of the war, the Velthari surrendered. The Kryn Empire prepared to do the same. The Old Ones had weapons we could not match, ships we could not destroy, and numbers we could not count. Our military advisors calculated that continued resistance would result in the extinction of our species within 3 months. Ralph scrolled down, reading faster now. The Old Ones offered the Kryn Empire terms: serve them or die. Our emperor at the time, Calthor III, decided to accept. He sent ambassadors to Earth to inform humanity that the war was over and that we would no longer fight beside them. Vexthor knew this story. Every Kryn knew it. It was taught as a lesson in survival, a choice between pride and existence. The Empire had chosen to survive. What did humanity say? Vexthor asked, even though he already knew the answer. Ralph read directly from the ancient text. The human response was delivered by their military commander, a female named. He stumbled over the alien name. General Martinez. She said, "We understand your choice and we bear you no ill will. But humanity will not surrender. We will not serve. We will fight until we win, or until there are no humans left to fight. Tell the Old Ones that if they want Earth, they'll have to take it from our dead hands." A shiver ran through every Kryn on the command deck. They all knew what happened next. The Kryn Empire surrendered, Ralph continued. We became servants of the Old Ones, forced to fight against humanity alongside our conquerors. For 2 more years, the war continued. Humanity fought alone against the Old Ones and every species that served them. They should have lost in weeks. Instead, they kept fighting. Ralph brought up an image. It showed a human ship, smaller than the Wanderer that floated before them now, surrounded by hundreds of enemy vessels. The date stamp on the image was 3 days before the end of the war. This ship held off an entire Old One fleet for 3 days, Ralph read. When it was finally destroyed, it had taken 47 enemy vessels with it. When the Old Ones boarded the wreckage, they found the crew dead at their stations. The humans had continued fighting even while their ship was torn apart around them. Another image appeared. This one showed a human soldier in armor, standing alone on a barren planet. Around them lay dozens of Old One warriors dead. Humans never retreated, Ralph read. They never surrendered. Even when wounded, even when outnumbered, even when victory was impossible, they fought. The Old Ones began to fear them. They called humanity the species that does not know when to die. Vexthor watched the images scroll past. Humans fighting in cities and space, on barren rocks in the void. Always fighting, always refusing to give up. In the 8th year of the war, something changed, Ralph read. The Old Ones stopped attacking Earth. They pulled back their fleets and began to withdraw from human space. The Kryn Empire and other servant species were ordered to maintain a blockade around Earth, to contain humanity, but not engage them. Why? One of the junior officers asked, unable to contain himself. Why stop when they had almost won? Ralph scrolled through the ancient text. The records are unclear, but there are fragments, pieces of captured Old One communications. They spoke of humanity with fear. They said that humans were infectious, that their refusal to surrender was spreading to the species that served the Old Ones. Rebellions began breaking out across the galaxy. Species that had been conquered started fighting back, inspired by humanity's example. Vexthor nodded slowly. He remembered this from his history lessons. The War of the Old Ones had ended not because anyone won, but because the Old Ones retreated. They left the galaxy and never returned. The final entry in the archive, Ralph said, his voice barely audible, states that Earth was bombarded from orbit as the Old Ones left. Every major human city was destroyed. The planet was left a burning wasteland. The records estimate that less than 1% of humanity survived. Earth was declared extinct, a cautionary tale about the cost of refusing to surrender. Silence fell across the command deck. Every eye was on the small ship on the view screen, the ship that carried Earth's symbol. But they survived, Vexthor whispered. Somehow they survived. He thought about the ancient records, about the humans who had fought an entire galaxy and refused to give up. He thought about how the Old Ones had retreated rather than face humanity's endless resistance. And now 3,000 years later, here was a human ship floating in Kryn space. Sir? His tactical officer called out. What are your orders? Vexthor didn't answer immediately. What were his orders? They had a damaged human ship in front of them. They could destroy it easily. But should they? What would happen if they attacked Earth's children and Earth found out? Sir, Ralph said quietly, there's something else in the records. Something about human behavior. Tell me. The Old Ones studied humanity extensively. They tried to understand why humans wouldn't surrender. They discovered that humans have an unusual trait. They called it pack bonding. Humans form powerful emotional connections, not just with their own species, but with others. When humans consider someone an ally or a friend, they will fight to the death to protect them. They never abandon their own. Ralph looked up from his console. Sir, if we attack this ship, if we harm these humans, Earth will find out. And if the legends are true, if humanity is even a fraction as fierce as the records claim, they won't rest until every Kryn world burns. Vexthor stared at the ship. 42 life signs according to their scans. 42 humans, probably scared and confused, waiting to see if the Kryn would help them or kill them. Send a message to the homeworld. Vexthor ordered. Priority Alpha. Tell the Empress that humanity has returned. Show her these records, and tell her that we have 42 humans in our space, alive and undamaged. Tell her that I await her orders, but that I recommend extreme caution. Yes, sir, Ralph said, moving to comply. Vexthor continued to stare at the human ship, and send a message to the humans. Tell them to remain where they are. Tell them we are consulting with our government. Be polite. Be very polite. As Ralph sent the messages, more Kryn ships continued to arrive in the system. Word was spreading fast through the military channels. The humans had returned. The species that had fought the Old Ones and survived. The species that had been extinct for 3,000 years was back. And the Kryn Empire, which had surrendered to the Old Ones all those centuries ago, now had to decide what to do about it. Empress Dalkara sat on the throne of the Kryn Empire, her scaled hands gripping the armrest so tightly that her claws dug into the metal. Around her, the Emergency Council had gathered in the Grand Chamber. Hundreds of the most powerful beings in the Empire. Military commanders, scientists, historians, and politicians all talking at once, all arguing about what to do. Silence, she commanded, and her voice echoed through the chamber. The talking stopped immediately. High Chancellor Brentok, present the evidence. The elderly Kryn stepped forward, his scales gray with age. He had served 3 empresses before Dalkara, and he had seen many crises. But the look in his eyes told her that he had never seen anything like this. Your Majesty, he began, projecting images above the council floor. 12 hours ago, a human vessel was detected in Sector 7. Admiral Vexthor's fleet encountered them. The humans claim their ship malfunctioned, and they accidentally entered our space. They requested assistance. And what did Admiral Vexthor do? Dalkara asked. He did nothing, Your Majesty. He held his position and contacted us immediately. Brentok paused. He also accessed the Forbidden Archives. A murmur ran through the council. The Forbidden Archives were rarely accessed. The information stored there was from the dark times, from the War of the Old Ones, when the galaxy had nearly fallen to an enemy from beyond the stars. Show us what he found, Dalkara ordered. Brentok gestured, and the images changed. Ancient text appeared, so old that it flickered and glitched. Then came the pictures. Earth, humans, war. The council watched in silence as the records played out. They saw images of human soldiers fighting the Old Ones. They saw human ships taking damage that should have destroyed them but continuing to fight. They saw planets where humans had made their last stands, refusing to surrender even when defeat was certain. One image made several council members gasp. It showed a human female, her armor broken, her body clearly wounded. She was surrounded by Old One warriors. The text beneath explained that she had held a strategic position alone for 6 hours after her entire unit was killed, giving her fleet time to evacuate civilians from the planet below. When the Old Ones finally killed her, she was still fighting. The records are clear, Brentok said quietly. When the War of the Old Ones began, 17 species formed the Galactic Coalition. Humanity was one of the last to join because their homeworld was far from the conflict. By the time Earth understood the danger, most other species had already fallen. He brought up a star chart showing the war's progression. The Old Ones swept through the galaxy like a plague. They had technology beyond our understanding, weapons that could destroy planets, and an endless hunger for conquest. Within 5 years, only the Kryn Empire and humanity remained in active resistance. Fleet Marshal Quindara stood up from her seat, her military decorations gleaming. And we made the choice to surrender. We chose survival over pride. Yes, Brentok agreed. Emperor Calthor III calculated that continued resistance would destroy our species. The Old Ones offered terms, harsh terms, but we would survive as servants. He accepted. And humanity? Dalkara asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. Humanity refused, Brentok said simply. They fought alone for 2 more years against the Old Ones and every species that served them, including us. We were forced to fight against our former allies. Shame filled the chamber. Every Kryn learned this history, but few thought deeply about what it meant. They had survived by serving their enemies. Humanity had chosen to fight alone rather than submit. They should have been destroyed in weeks, Quindara said, her voice thoughtful. No single species should have been able to stand against the combined might of the Old Ones and their servant armies. How did they survive? Brentok brought up more images. The Old Ones studied humanity extensively, trying to understand them. Their reports describe humans as having several unusual characteristics. First, humans come from what they classified as a death world, a planet with extreme conditions that produced a species adapted for survival. An image of Earth appeared, showing storms, predators, and natural disasters. Earth is more hostile than most inhabited worlds. Humans evolved to be resilient, adaptable, and persistent. They don't give up easily because their entire evolutionary history taught them that giving up means death. Second, he continued, humans have an unusual psychological trait. They form powerful emotional bonds not just with family, but with anyone they consider part of their group. The Old Ones called it pack bonding. When humans consider you one of their own, they will die rather than abandon you. Another image appeared, showing human soldiers carrying wounded comrades through enemy fire. The Old Ones observed that humans would take enormous risks to save their own. A human will sacrifice themselves if it means their group survives. This made them unpredictable and dangerous. Dalkara listened carefully. She understood military tactics, and this information was valuable. An enemy that wouldn't retreat, wouldn't surrender, and would sacrifice themselves for their group was the most dangerous kind of enemy. Third, Brentok said, humans have an unusual approach to warfare. Most species see war as a political tool, something to be used carefully and abandoned when the cost becomes too high. Humans see war differently. When threatened, they commit completely. There is no half measure, no calculated risk. They fight with everything they have until they win or die. The old ones called this human behavior total war. Brentok explained. Every human, even civilians, would contribute to the war effort. Their entire society would transform into a war machine. The old ones had never encountered this before. He brought up the final set of images, and these made several council members look away. They showed the last days of the war. Human ships barely holding together, still fighting. Human colonies reduced to ruins, still broadcasting defiance. Earth itself, burning under orbital bombardment, still refusing to surrender. In the 8th year of the war, the old ones retreated, Brentok said. They left our galaxy and never returned. The official records state that they withdrew because they had accomplished their goals. But the classified records tell a different story. Dalkara leaned forward. What story? The old ones were afraid, Brentok said simply. They had conquered hundreds of species across multiple galaxies. They had never encountered a species like humanity that refused to be conquered. More importantly, humanity's example was inspiring rebellions among the species that had surrendered. The old ones feared that if they continued fighting humanity, they would lose everything they had conquered. So they bombarded Earth and retreated, Quindara said softly, leaving humanity for dead. Yes, the records estimate that the bombardment killed 99% of humanity. Earth was left a wasteland. The Kryn Empire, freed from the Old One's control, sent scouts years later. They found ruins, radiation, and no signs of life. Earth was declared extinct. Brentok turned to face the Empress directly. But humanity survived. Somehow some humans survived the bombardment and rebuilt their civilization. The ship in our space proves it. Earth lives. The council chamber erupted into argument. Some demanded that the human ship be destroyed before humanity could become a threat. Others argued for immediate alliance, hoping to gain favor with the species that had made the old ones retreat. Still others suggested ignoring the humans and hoping they would leave peacefully. Dalkara listened to the arguments, her mind racing. She had ruled the Kryn Empire for 20 years, and she had always made decisions based on what was best for her people. But this decision was more complex than any she had faced before. High Chancellor, she said, cutting through the noise. You said the human ship malfunctioned. They did not come here intentionally? Correct, Your Majesty. They appear to be explorers who had a navigation accident. They requested assistance with repairs. And have we responded to this request? Admiral Vexthor is awaiting orders. He has told the humans to remain where they are while we consult with our government. Dalkara considered this. What about Earth itself? Do we know its current location and status? The humans transmitted their ship registration data. It includes Earth's coordinates. The planet is approximately 200 light-years from Admiral Vexthor's position. Brentok brought up a star chart. It appears to be in an isolated region of space far from any major powers. The humans have been exploring slowly, expanding carefully. They likely have no idea that other species exist until now. How is that possible? Someone asked. Surely they would have encountered someone by now. Earth is in what we call the outer darkness, Brentok explained. A region of space with few stars and fewer inhabitable planets. Most species avoid it because there's nothing of value there. The old ones placed Earth in the forbidden database, warning all their servants never to go near that region. After the old ones left, we simply forgot about it. Dalkara understood. The Kryn Empire had spent 3,000 years rebuilding, expanding, and trying to forget the shame of their surrender. They had focused on the rich, populated regions of the galaxy. Earth, isolated and believed extinct, had been ignored. Meanwhile, aboard the Wanderer, Captain Jake Morrison and his crew waited anxiously for the aliens to respond. Jake Morrison hadn't slept in 20 hours. He sat in his captain's chair, staring at the Kryn fleet that surrounded his ship. Amy had counted over 60 warships now, all holding position at a respectful distance. They weren't threatening, but they weren't leaving either. Captain, Ben Carter called from the communication station. Ben was the youngest member of the bridge crew, a specialist in languages and history. I've been working on the Kryn communications we intercepted. The translation software is getting better, and I think I've figured out something important. Jake walked over to Ben's station. What did you find? Sir, the Kryn keep mentioning something called the War of the Old Ones. I cross-referenced it with what little we know about the Great Collapse. And Ben paused, his fingers trembling slightly over his controls. Sir, I think the Great Collapse wasn't a collapse at all. I think it was a war. A war? Katie joined them, listening intently. What kind of war? A big one. Maybe the biggest ever. Ben brought up star charts on his screen showing patterns of dead systems and spatial anomalies. Look at this. These are regions of space the Kryn call the scar zones, places where entire solar systems were destroyed. The damage is thousands of years old and it matches the time frame of our Great Collapse. Ryan came over, looking at the data. You're saying Earth was involved in a war that destroyed solar systems? I'm saying Earth survived a war that destroyed solar systems, Ben corrected. Everyone else lost or died. We're still here. Before Jake could respond, the communications console lit up. Captain, we're receiving a transmission. It's different from before. This one has a lot more bandwidth and it's coming from really far away. Put it through, Jake ordered, returning to his chair. The view screen flickered and suddenly they were looking at an alien. She was clearly Kryn, with scales and 4 eyes like the others they had encountered. But there was something different about her. She wore elaborate robes covered in symbols, and she carried herself with unmistakable authority. I am Empress Dalkara, supreme ruler of the Kryn Empire, the alien said, and the translation came through perfectly clear. I am addressing Captain Jake Morrison of Earth. Jake stood up, straightening his uniform. I'm Captain Morrison, Your Majesty. Thank you for responding to our distress call. The Empress studied him carefully, and Jake could see something in her eyes. Was it curiosity? Fear? Respect? Captain Morrison, I must ask you a question, and I need you to answer truthfully. Does humanity remember the War of the Old Ones? Jake glanced at his crew. They all looked as confused as he felt. Your Majesty, I'm sorry, but I don't know what that is. We have no record of anything called the War of the Old Ones. The Empress's expression changed. Jake couldn't read alien emotions perfectly, but he thought she looked surprised and perhaps relieved. You truly don't remember, she said softly. Captain Morrison, I need to share something with you. Something your species has forgotten, but that the rest of the galaxy has never forgotten. Over the next hour, Empress Dalkara told them everything. She told them about the War of the Old Ones, about an enemy that came from beyond the galaxy and nearly destroyed all life. She told them about the Galactic Coalition, about 17 species fighting together against impossible odds. She told them about how most species surrendered or were destroyed, and she told them about humanity. The bridge crew listened in stunned silence as the Empress described what their ancestors had done. How humans had fought alone when everyone else gave up. How they had made the Old Ones retreat not through superior technology or numbers, but through sheer refusal to stop fighting. When she finished, Jake found he couldn't speak. His crew was silent, processing what they had heard. That's impossible, Ryan finally said. We don't have the technology for that kind of war. We barely have working jump drives. How could we have fought an entire galaxy? You didn't have the technology then either, the Empress replied. According to our records, humanity was one of the less advanced species when the war began. But you had something else. You had the will to never surrender. You had the ability to adapt quickly, and you had each other. She paused, and her expression softened. The Old Ones studied your species extensively. They couldn't understand why you wouldn't give up. They discovered that humans form bonds not just with family, but with anyone you consider part of your group. When you fight, you don't fight for abstract concepts. You fight for the person beside you. That made you unpredictable and dangerous. Katie spoke up, her voice uncertain. Your Majesty, if this is true, what happened to Earth? Why don't we remember? The Old Ones bombarded your planet as they retreated from the galaxy, the Empress said quietly. They destroyed your cities, your infrastructure, everything. The Kryn scouts who visited Earth years later found only ruins and radiation. They declared humanity extinct. But somehow you survived. Jake thought about the Great Collapse, about the mysterious ruins found on Earth and Mars, about the gaps in human history that no one could explain. It was starting to make sense. We barely survived, Ben said, working quickly at his station. Captain, I'm pulling up everything we know about the Great Collapse. If we assume the Empress is telling the truth, the pieces fit. The radiation scarring on Earth, the destroyed cities, the complete loss of records. We didn't collapse. We were nearly wiped out. How many survived? Jake asked the Empress. Our estimates suggested less than 1% of your population, perhaps a few million humans total, scattered across your planet and your colonies on nearby worlds. A few million. Jake tried to imagine it. Billions dead, civilization destroyed, almost everything lost. And yet humanity had survived and rebuilt. Why did you rebuild without weapons? Amy asked. If we were such fierce warriors, why are we so weak now? The Empress shook her head. I don't know, Lieutenant. Perhaps your ancestors chose peace. Perhaps they wanted to ensure the cycle of violence didn't repeat. Or perhaps they simply didn't have the resources to rebuild a military civilization. Jake's mind was racing. Your Majesty, you said Earth's location is in your databases. Have other species known where we are this whole time? No, Captain. After the war, Earth was placed in the Forbidden Database, a warning to stay away from that region of space. When the old ones left, we gained access to that database, but most species simply forgot about it. Earth was in a region we call the Outer Darkness, far from trade routes and resources. We had no reason to go there. Until now, Jake said. Until now, the Empress agreed. Captain Morrison, I want you to understand something. The Kryn Empire spans 300 star systems. We have fleets that could reduce planets to dust. We have weapons that can destroy moons. We are one of the most powerful civilizations in the known galaxy. She paused, letting that sink in. And when we saw Earth's symbol on your ship, we were terrified. We are still terrified, but why? Jake asked, frustrated. Look at us. We have one damaged ship with 42 people. We're not a threat to anyone. You are 42 people from Earth, the Empress replied. The same Earth that made the old ones retreat. The same Earth that fought alone against the entire galaxy and refused to surrender. Captain Morrison, do you understand what that means to us? Jake was beginning to. The Kryn Empire remembered Earth not as it was now, weak and isolated, but as it had been. As a species that wouldn't stop, couldn't be conquered, and had made the most powerful force in the galaxy flee in fear. We're not those people anymore. Jake said quietly. Whatever we were, we've forgotten. We're explorers now, not warriors. Are you? The Empress asked. Or have you simply had no reason to fight? Captain, let me ask you something. If I threatened your crew right now, if I told you I was going to kill them, what would you do? Jake felt anger flash through him. I would do everything in my power to stop you. Even if it meant your own death? Yes, even if it was hopeless, if you had no chance of winning. Jake looked around his bridge at his crew. Amy, who had served with him for 5 years. Katie, who he trusted with his life. Ryan, who could make him laugh even in the darkest moments. Ben, who was brilliant and kind and still so young. Yes, Jake said firmly. I would fight until I couldn't fight anymore. The Empress nodded slowly. Then you are still the children of Earth. You have not changed as much as you think. A long silence fell over the bridge. Jake didn't know what to say. His mind was full of images from the ancient war, of humans fighting impossible odds, of Earth burning under orbital bombardment. Your Majesty, Katie said softly, what happens now? That is what I came to discuss, the Empress replied. Captain Morrison, the Kryn Empire wishes to offer assistance. We will repair your ship. We will provide you with fuel and supplies for your journey home. We will give you updated star charts showing the location of inhabited systems, so you can avoid accidentally entering anyone else's space. Thank you, Jake said, relief washing over him. That's very generous. It's not generosity, Captain. It's necessity. The Empress leaned forward, her expression serious. Humanity is back among the stars. That changes everything. The Kryn Empire wants to be your friend, not your enemy. We want to help you, so that when Earth returns to full strength, you remember that we were there for you. 6 hours later, Jake stood in the Wanderer's docking bay, watching as a small Kryn shuttle approached. His crew had cleaned the bay as best they could, but the damage from their accident was still visible. Scorch marks on the walls, exposed wiring, temporary patches on the hull. It wasn't the impressive first impression Jake would have liked to make, but it was honest. Katie stood beside him, along with Amy and Ryan. Ben had stayed on the bridge to monitor communications. They all wore their dress uniforms, crisp and formal, trying to look professional despite their damaged ship. The shuttle landed gently, its engines humming softly before shutting down. The airlock cycled and then the door opened. Empress Dalkara emerged, followed by 2 guards and an advisor. She was smaller in person than she had appeared on the view screen, but her presence filled the docking bay. Her scales gleamed under the lights and her robes flowed around her as she walked. Jake stepped forward and bowed slightly, a gesture of respect he hoped translated across species. Your Majesty, welcome aboard the Wanderer. I'm Captain Jake Morrison. The Empress studied him for a long moment, and Jake felt like she was looking into his soul. Then she smiled, or at least made an expression that seemed like a smile. "Captain Morrison, thank you for allowing me to visit." Her voice was different in person, deeper and more resonant. "I know your ship is damaged and your situation is difficult. I promise this won't take long. We have a meeting room prepared," Jake said, gesturing toward the corridor. "It's not fancy, but it's private." They walked through the ship's corridors, and Jake noticed the Empress looking at everything. The human crew members they passed stopped and stared, seeing an alien for the first time in their lives. The Empress didn't seem bothered by the attention. The meeting room was small, with a table and chairs that Jake hoped would work for Kryn physiology. The Empress sat carefully, and her guards remained by the door. "Captain," she began once they were settled, "I want to be honest with you. I didn't come here just to offer assistance. I came here because I needed to see humanity for myself. I needed to know if the legends were true." "And?" Jake asked. "You're different from what I expected," she admitted. "The records describe humans as fierce warriors, people who would never back down from a fight. But you and your crew seem peaceful, curious, kind even." Jake thought about that. Maybe we've changed. Or maybe the legends only saw one side of humanity. We can be fierce when we need to be, but that doesn't mean we want to be. The Empress nodded slowly. "That's wise. The galaxy has enough warriors." She paused, then continued. "Captain, I need to tell you something. When my people saw Earth's symbol, we panicked. We've spent the last day debating what to do about humanity's return. Some of my advisors wanted to destroy your ship before you could report back to Earth." Jake felt Katie tense beside him, but he kept his expression calm. "But you didn't." "No, because destroying your ship would only delay the inevitable. Humanity is back among the stars. Other human ships will follow. And if we attack you, if we harm you, then when Earth finds out, they'll come for us." The Empress met his eyes. "And we remember what happens when someone threatens Earth." "We don't want war," Jake said firmly. "We're not looking for enemies." "I believe you," the Empress said. "But I need you to understand something. The galaxy is not a safe place, Captain. There are empires and species that would see humanity as a threat or as a resource to exploit. When word spreads that Earth has returned, many will come. Some will want alliance, some will want war, and some will simply want to test you. Then we'll deal with each situation as it comes," Jake replied. "Will you?" The Empress leaned forward. "Captain, can I show you something?" She gestured to her advisor, who placed a device on the table. It projected an image in the air showing the Wanderer. "This is your ship," the Empress said. "According to our scans, it's equipped with basic jump drive technology, simple shields, and minimal weapons. By galactic standards, it's outdated. Most species mastered this level of technology thousands of years ago." Jake felt a flash of embarrassment but said nothing. "However," the Empress continued, and the image changed. "Our scans also detected something else. Hidden in your ship's computer core, there are files that our best analysts can't access. Files that are encrypted with technology far beyond what your ship should have. Files that are very, very old." Jake exchanged glances with Katie. "We don't know anything about hidden files." "I believe you," the Empress said, "but they're there. And yesterday, something interesting happened. When we transmitted the historical records about the War of the Old Ones to your ship, your computer began trying to access those hidden files. It's as if the information we sent activated something." Ryan leaned forward, fascinated despite the tension. "Like a password or a trigger?" "Exactly." The Empress gestured, and the image changed again, showing lines of code. "We don't know what's in those files, Captain. But based on their age and encryption level, we believe they're from the time before the Great Collapse. From when humanity was still a galactic power." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "Are you saying our ship has weapons or technology from the old war?" "I'm saying your ship might have access to that technology once the files are unlocked." The Empress looked at him seriously. "Captain Morrison, I'm going to be very direct with you. The Kryn Empire is afraid of what humanity might become if you regain your former strength. But we're more afraid of what might happen if we try to stop you." "So you're choosing cooperation," Katie said. "Yes, we're choosing to be your friend, hoping that you'll remember this when the time comes." The Empress paused. "But Captain, I need to know. When you return to Earth, when you tell them about us and about the galaxy, what will you recommend? War or peace?" Jake thought carefully before answering. This was the most important question he had ever been asked. His answer would shape humanity's future in the galaxy. Your Majesty, he said slowly, I'm just an explorer. I'm not a politician or a general, but I can tell you what I believe. Humanity forgot about the war for a reason. Maybe we chose to forget because we didn't want to be warriors anymore. Maybe we were so traumatized that we had to start fresh. Either way, we built a peaceful society. We explore, we learn, we create. That's who we are now. He paused, gathering his thoughts. But you're right that we can be fierce when threatened. If someone attacks Earth, if someone hurts people we care about, we'll fight. Not because we want to, but because we have to. That's the other side of humanity. We protect our own. The Empress listened carefully. So my recommendation, Jake continued, will be to pursue peace with any species that offers it, to build alliances, to trade, to learn from each other, but also to be ready, to be strong enough that no one thinks we're easy prey. We'll be peaceful but not helpless. A wise answer, the Empress said, and one that gives me hope. She stood up and everyone else stood as well. Captain Morrison, the Kryn Empire formally offers alliance with Earth. We will help repair your ship, provide you with supplies, and give you safe passage home. We'll also give you everything we know about the galaxy, the other species, and the political situation. Thank you, Your Majesty, Jake said, bowing again. But I'm going to ask something in return, the Empress added. When you get home, when Earth decides how to proceed, I want you to remember this conversation. Remember that the Kryn Empire chose peace. Remember that we helped you when you were vulnerable, and when other species come to Earth, some of them won't be as friendly as we are. I'll remember, Jake promised. The Empress smiled again, and this time it seemed more genuine. Good. Now let's get your ship repaired. My engineers are already standing by. Over the next 3 days, Kryn engineers swarmed over the Wanderer, fixing the damage with efficiency that amazed the human crew. They repaired the jump drive, sealed the hull breach, and upgraded several systems with better technology. During that time, Jake and his crew learned everything they could about the galaxy. The Empress had been true to her word, providing them with star charts, species profiles, and political information. The galaxy was bigger and more complex than they had ever imagined. Ryan spent hours with Kryn scientists, learning about their technology and sharing human knowledge in return. Amy worked with their military officers, understanding their tactical doctrines and strategies. Ben studied their languages and cultures, building bridges of understanding. And Jake worked with the ship's computer, trying to access those hidden files the Empress had mentioned. With help from Kryn experts, they finally succeeded. What they found took Jake's breath away. The files contained schematics for weapons technology far beyond anything humanity currently possessed. Ship designs that could cross the galaxy in weeks instead of months, shield systems that could withstand planet-killing weapons, and tactical information about every species that had fought in the War of the Old Ones. But there was also something else. A message recorded 3,000 years ago, left by someone who knew that humanity might forget. Jake played the message on the bridge, with his senior crew watching. A woman appeared on the screen, wearing a military uniform that was recognizably human, but designed differently from anything they use now. She looked tired, haunted, but determined. My name is General Elizabeth Martinez, Essie.